How's it going, troops? Hope your vibes are all good, and in today's video I'm going to explain to you how you can set up for the absolute perfect 1 rep max. Something that so many people do wrong is they give the proper care and attention to doing a 1 rep max on the day, like they get in the zone and all that stuff, and that's all great, but they've actually half-arsed the preparation leading up to it, and what ends up happening is they've not set themselves up in the best possible way so that on the day they can actually maximise their true strength. So I'm going to talk you through how, in the absolute perfect scenario, the perfect world, how I set up for a 1 rep max and the build up and the sort of weeks leading up to it, but more so on those few days and on the day off, so that I can absolutely have the best performance possible. Now, something that is going to help improve your 1 rep max is by liking and subscribing to me on here, because it costs you absolutely nothing. It doesn't necessarily give me any money in my pocket, so even if you do think I'm an asshole, it's not actually helping me out that much, but it does still help me out. So if you can, please do that. Make a massive help to me, and you're only going to get bigger and stronger by doing it, and who doesn't want that? So please and thank you in advance. So as I was saying, the preparation and the build up to a 1 rep max is what people let themselves down on all the time, and actually makes them fall short of their potential on the day. So I'm just going to give you a wee walkthrough of what I would do building up to it. Obviously we're not a bunch of powerlifting virgins, so this is like our competition day when you're stepping up into the gym to do that 1 rep max. So yeah, I'm just going to explain to you how you can have the best competition day possible. Now, I'll preface this whole thing by saying that if you are going for a 1 rep max, then you actually have to build yourself up properly within your actual training. So I'm not going to like give you a whole detailed breakdown on what a program should look like leading up to a 1 rep max. But what it shouldn't look like is it just thrown in any random training. We can be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go and test my strength now, and yeah, I've not really been training specific training for it, but I'm just going to go and do it anyway. That's going to get you nowhere, and that's not going to allow you to realise your true potential and your actual true strength. So what you should have been doing in the weeks and months leading up to it is training at the top end, which basically means that you're training heavy, you're training at your lower rep ranges, you're preparing your body for handling like those big massive weights. And don't just like train at like a lower rep range, maybe at a kind of more moderate intensity, and then be like, yeah, I'm going to go test now, because please believe me, that's going to get you nowhere. So make sure that you built yourself up properly within your training. For me to go through that, that's a totally separate video, and that's just a common mistake that so many people make. They just chuck random tests in all the time. Following on from that, I'll tell you one thing that I personally don't like doing, that I know a lot of coaches advocate for, and that's I don't particularly like taking a deload the week before a 1 rep max. Now, hypothetically, yes, it can give you that extra little bit of freshness on the actual day, but for me, I feel like it kills my momentum. I like to see myself progressing every week, which is what you probably should be doing if you are going for a 1 rep max. I'm training at all my lower rep ranges, and I'm increasing the weight, getting a few more reps. You should be hitting like lifetime PBs that I haven't hit before, so I know that what I'm going to be able to do for 1 is going to be my best, and I just like it to be like that perfect, is it a crescendo? I'd only done music in high school. I don't know where it's like you start and you build up, you build up, you build up, and it comes to this like perfect peak. And I don't like taking that deload, because it effectively drops you down. Ideally, you go back up again, but for me, I've always found that it just kills my momentum, and I just like hitting a really good week of training the week before it on whatever exercise I'm doing, and then the next week I just fall into doing the actual 1 rep max, and that's just what's worked best for me. But I will concede that it's not a massive right or wrong thing. Now, into more of the specifics on the actual days leading up to the 1 rep max, what I'd be making sure I'm doing, I'd be making sure that I'm having an ample amount of good proper recovery, proper sleep, proper nutrition, and not just like, oh, I'm going for a big lift tomorrow, so I'll make sure I get to sleep the night before. That's not really going to do that much for you, and if you are quite bad at sleeping, for lack of a better word, then if you have an extra long sleep, you're probably just going to wake up feeling even more groggy than you normally would. So I'd be, the 3, 4, 5 days leading up to it, I'd be really anal about my sleep and my food, and just making sure that I'm getting in all my calories, getting in good sleep, so that, I've had that compound effect leading up onto the day itself. Now, whatever that day is going to be, I'd be actually planning it out in advance, so that it's going to be as close to the beginning of my training week as possible. Now, that doesn't mean rejigging your full life schedule or your actual training schedule if it has been working and you've been seeing improvements, but you obviously want to try and keep yourself as fresh as possible. So yeah, for me, I always try and do my 1 rep maxes at the beginning of the week before I've done any other training, or at least after I've had like a day or two's rest from training, which would be my normal rest on a weekly basis. And yeah, just do it as fresh. And then it goes without saying, do it at the beginning of the session. Don't do a bunch of exercises, then try and test your 1 rep max, because you're just going to hinder yourself. I'd also be making sure that on that day I'm training, I'd be training at the time that suits me best to train. And for me personally, I always feel like I'm at my strongest and I have my best training sessions when I'm training somewhere between 12 and 2 in the afternoon. And you know I hate using the science word because I'm not a geek, but there is actually a bit of science to back me up there that your body is actually strongest around that sort of midday point. But anyway, that doesn't matter. If you enjoy training first thing in the morning, make sure you do your session first thing in the morning. If you like training last thing at night, make sure you train last thing at night. Just train the time that suits you best, and you should hopefully be able to rearrange your life if you need to be, so that you're basically training in the absolute perfect conditions for you. Now the night before, and I'll keep this all dumbed down language wise, I would make sure that I'm having high carb food just so that my energy system that I'm going to be using for lifting the weights is absolutely full and it's at its max. So I would say from about 24 hours before, you should be having high carb meals. Probably cut back a little bit on the fat, a little bit on the fibre, so that all those carbs you're eating just go straight into the energy system. For the day before, I'd be sticking with mostly complex carbs, so like your rice, potatoes. You don't need to go into the sort of simple carbs, which I'll come to in a wee second, till the actual day off, because you're going to be using the energy you get from that instantly. So complex carbs the day before. I'd be having my extra good sleep the night before as well. So we've woke up and it's now 1 rep max day. So for me personally, I definitely make sure I'm eating something beforehand, whether it be 1 meal or 2 meals. Again, my best training time's in the afternoon, so that gives me enough time to have 2 meals in. And that is a benefit of training later on in the day. You can just have a little bit more food in you. But even if you are a morning trainer, make sure you at least have 1 meal. And the way that I structure my meals is my very first meal of the day, I would have a little bit of protein and I would have a lot of complex carbohydrates, so like porridge or oats, maybe some bread, something like that. Oats is always my personal go-to, and I think for a breakfast meal that does trump all. And I would maybe start to have a little bit of simple carbohydrates, so maybe like a bowl of cereal or something like that. If I was training in the morning, or if I was training later on in the day and I've still got another meal to go, I would save the bulk of those simple carbs for right before that, and I would maybe just have a little bit, maybe some fruit or something like that first thing in the morning. So if you are having a second meal, that is when I would make it very much a fast-acting carbohydrate meal, so like cereal or something like that. That's my go-to, and basically the carbs you get from that is going to shoot like right to the top of the energy system, and that's what's going to push it on. Now just remember, when it comes to actually food to give you that spike in energy, it doesn't necessarily have to be healthy. I wouldn't eat like chocolate bars and stuff like that that's going to bog you down. It should be the type of food like cereal where you eat a lot of it but it doesn't really fill you up, but it actually counts as a lot of calories. And yeah, basically the way to think about it is that's going straight into your energy system. Just for context, by the way, that's the protocol that I follow when I compete in jiu-jitsu. Like, competition days aren't necessarily for the healthy foods. I've obviously got my strategies behind what I'm eating and why I'm eating it, but the actual healthy eating comes on the weeks and months building up to it when I'm training normally, and then competition day you shouldn't really need to worry too much about eating quote unquote healthy. But again, that's a video for a slightly different topic. So anyway, I would have that, my second meal. It would be a simple carbohydrate meal. I'd maybe have one tiny little bit of snack before it, and then that takes us right up to the training session itself. And I would say just try and not do anything massively different than what you've been doing. So a wee common mistake that I've seen people do, where they come into the gym and they say, I'm going for a 1 rep max, and the common one is they do some big mental elaborate warm-up that they've never actually done before, and then what happens is they just use too much energy, or they work their muscles or overstretch or whatever it may be, and then it actually hinders their performance. And obviously when we're talking about going for your all-time best lift, we are kind of talking about these wee minor percentages that can make a big difference. So if you're not one for doing a big elaborate warm-up, don't do a good big elaborate warm-up. If you don't do cardio before you lift, don't start adding in cardio before you lift. Just do what you normally do, because in theory that's what's been working for you up till that point, which has brought you to trying to the 1 rep max, and it should work out for itself on the day. And then from there, all that's left for you to do is just actually do the 1 rep max itself. And I'm not going to like run through how you should do your sets and your jumps and all that stuff, because that's probably a video in itself. And speaking of, I have actually done a video on this for my clients that I get them to watch before they go for their 1 rep maxes, and we seem to have pretty good success with it. So if you did want to have a wee watch of that video, drop me a message on my Instagram and I'll happily send it out to you, and you can have a wee watch of it, and hopefully it can just help you out even more. So there's your Uncle Tino step-by-step guide on how you can properly prepare yourself for a 1 rep max, and hopefully if you watch this and you put it into action at some point, you have a lot of success with it. And if you do have success with it, and the first person that actually, we'll change it, the first person that has success with it, please drop me a wee message on Instagram, and if you tell me it's worked for you, I'll give you a free t-shirt. And even better, if you send me a video of you doing your 1 rep max, I'll give you a gammy as well. Social media links are in the description below. Coaching inquiry forms in the description below. If you want to get started at the end of the month / next month, which is when my next batch of coaching spaces will be open, fill that out or drop me a message and we can have a wee chat. Have a class week and I'll speak to you soon.